friends. This is Miss Olive J. Abarquez of Next on our list, and today I'll be talking about flow of the day. So, this is going to be a quick video on a day of a teacher's life, and I want you to know what prompted me to do this aside from the request of Chris. Is that many of the webinars I've attended have been focused on paradigms of teaching remotely. I guess we're done with that. We pretty much understand what is synchronous, asynchronous, and today we're just going to focus on what we really need to do inside the classroom or inside our classroom in remote learning. So, only very few webinars have actually painted a picture of how a remote class should look like. And I am very much honored to share this very simple and quick video on how a day could look like during remote learning before the day even begins. So here we go with Flow of the Day, your anchor in remote learning. Why is it an anchor nga pala? Diba the anchor holds the ship. So your flow of the day will hold your class together. This is what it's all about. So, the flow of the day is otherwise known as daily class schedule. Oh, napakasimple lang pala. Now, the daily class schedule actually sets the expectation and establishes daily routine. Always keep in mind that for very young learners, having a routine is the first thing that they look forward to. Okay, they want to understand, or they want to know that there is really structure in what they do on a daily basis, and the flow of the day will help them understand what they need to do on a daily basis. Now, the flow of the day actually reduces stress and increases focus. So I've read across one article talking about how every one of us, whether we're on vacation, whether we're in quarantine, pandemic, or just living our regular lives, we actually need a flow of the day for our own mental health. The flow of the day actually reduces waste of time and increases productivity. There's no more guessing as to what we need to do next or how much time are we expected to finish the job in front of us. With the flow of the day, we know the time frames of each subject, and we know pretty well how much time we need to give to our students, and on the students part, they know also too well how much time they're expected to work on something. Now, what are the elements of a smart flow of the day? Alam naman natin, di ba, kung anong meaning ng smart. So I'm not gonna go over that because I'm sure you have heard of that word a long time ago and in so many webinars. Okay? The elements that I want to talk about is that your flow of the day should have date and time frame, name of subject and the teacher, and it also shows unit or topic or learning objective. Now, during remote learning, it may show links to website or to a Google document slide. Or now, here is a grade 2 sample flow of the day. So from 8:10 to 8:15, you tell them already ahead of time that you're expecting them to log in already in the Google Classroom or in Google Meet. But you also have to give the address of your Google Meet ahead of time. And if, on the first day, on the first week, just keep on showing it and modeling it to them so that eventually on the second week, they would do it independently on their own, hopefully with the help of the parents. So from 8:15 to 8:20, that's the homeroom. Singing of the national anthem. So during homeroom, you can do singing of the national anthem, pledge to the flag, quote of the day, prayer, reading, or math challenge. All of this must be student-led interaction. But by the way, on the first week pala, dapat yung teacher minomodel niya to para mapakita na niyo yung schedule, and on the next week, the teacher will be asking na the students to do it themselves. So now we are done with talking about homeroom. Okay, let me use pala my timer. Okay. So let's go to the next subject. At 8:20 to 9 o'clock, uh, there's word study. And word study covers structured phonics, instruction, vocab, spelling, word patterns, grammar. And after word study, it only will it does make sense that you will have reading. Kasi 'di ba after you talk about learning, after you talk about the different letters and sounds, now you're gonna read a book, 'di ba? So 9 to 9:45, it will be reading. Now, I do have a question for you teachers out there. How do you plan to teach reading remotely? Do you have textbooks that the children are actually holding while they are at home, or ikaw lang yung merong textbook? So, kung ikaw lang yung merong textbook, dapat mo ipapakita sa mga bata, di ba? But if they do have the textbook, which is to me very ideal, then you have the textbook, you show it to them, and then they can actually later on work on it independently. So, aside from having textbook, my question is, do you have online subscription, like for example www.getepic.com? Yung mga ganon, I use that for my lesson, for my reading lessons. Now, do teachers have enough books at home too, so that they can use those books for reading workshop model? Which, by the way, if you want to learn what is the reading workshop model, I would be very happy to do that video the next time around, and that's what we're using here in New York. I guess there are many ways to do a reading workshop model, but I really like the way reading is taught using that one. Now, there's another question I have here. How are you able to turn YouTube video reading into quality reading lesson? I have used YouTube reading also, and it's really all up to the teacher to really turn that into something that's really um, a good reading lesson. Now, for writing, how do you plan to write remotely? I'm sorry, it may error yata tayo dito. But anyway, I do mean to say or ask, how do you plan to do your writing remotely? Now, make your materials available online, because as we know, writing is something that is very personal. And though you will have a lesson, they would still end up writing, whatever it is that they want to write about. 10 o'clock or 10:30, magkaroon ng break for snacks or for stretching, and you do mention to them as much as possible to your students, there should be no screen time para naman they can step back and not, be looking at the screen. From 10:45 to 11:30, ideally math, or math session 1. In my case, I call it math computation. So we review adding, subtracting, multiplication, just strengthening their computation skills. And I also start teaching the math lesson for the day. Then from 11:30 to 12, it would be science for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, I do social studies. So you might be asking why there's only 30 minutes of science and social studies. Well, for K to 2, the very core subjects are reading, writing, and math. Science and social studies are still mandatory, but the reason also why I only give 30 minutes to that is because I would end up giving real life science and social studies homework, which we can talk about another time. So that's just the reason why it only has 30 minutes right here. And then we also have 12 to 1 o'clock lunch break after the science and social studies. And then I hope you can see this. How do I make this go away? Then 1 to 1:45 would be math problem solving. Okay. So we're back again. We're gonna talk about 1:45 to 2 o'clock breakout session for math. Now, this is a very personal, personal preference ko to, na I would really want to spend extra time in math kasi nga math would be difficult for some kids. And unlike reading or writing na pwede mo siyang i-repeat as the same lesson the next day or a month after, with math, it's like you have to build on one skill from another. So I just feel like I'm not comfortable about proceeding to the next lesson in math unless naintindihan ng for most naintindihan ng mga estudyante ko, at least for most of them, no? So 1:45 to 2 o'clock, it's gonna be a breakout session for math, and that would be a good opportunity to break them into groups wherein I could give more computation or problem solving tasks to students who already got the concept. And at the same time, I set them off and work with in smaller groups, or yeah, just a few of them. Work with those kids who did not really understand the lesson. Now at 2 o'clock to 2:05, that would be the end of class. So you actually remind all of them to be back into the group at 2 o'clock. Okay, I do recommend that you formally end your class para may closure yung mga bata. Remember, these are very young learners and they need that kind of announcement, and they need that kind of mental preparation na, oh, tapos na pala ang klase ko for today. Okay, so formally end your class with a statement or with somebody saying what they have learned for the day, or you guys all together singing a song. And I really love singing a song together with my class. They love it too. Now, at 2:05 to 3 o'clock, that would be your scheduled one-to-one or very small group tutorial. I do recommend that you do that because this is the time during the day wherein whoever you have noted struggled with word study, reading, writing, um, would now have that extended time to work on whatever they were struggling with. Remember, we have a structure, but if you have a student who's struggling with something, or special ed student, and they would need extended time, this is now the extended time that's for them. I also recommend for the whole school, or even you can work this out with your principal. You just ask permission or work it out with a parent to do an after school or extracurricular activities. Even though we are on a pandemic, I think having something for the kids to do other than school is actually something that's positive for them. And I do encourage schools, administrators, and teachers to do some extracurricular activities, whether it's learning how to sew, which is very basic, learning how to bake, how to cook, sketch, paint, play, instruments, whatever it is, I do recommend it. Now, if you think about cooking, this is a very good time kasi nga, as a teacher, kung nasa bahay ka, may table ka, you can actually show to your students how to slice the vegetable, which they could actually be doing at home at the same time with the permission, of course, of the parents. Okay, so I think that's it for the very detailed flow of the day. Now, I just want to mention that embedded in each of the subjects should be independent work and share. So independent work and share must take place in all subjects, whether it's word study, reading, writing, math, science, social studies. And here is my suggestion for breaking down the 45-minute session with your students, or 45 minutes session for each subject. I do recommend that for the first 15 to 20 minutes, it would be teacher instruction, followed by 5 minutes of question and answer, allowing the teacher to assess who comprehended the question and who didn't, using high order thinking questions, and then followed by 10 to 15 minutes of breakout session. So here we go. I was just talking about um, within the 45 minutes of 15 to 20 minutes of teacher instruction, 5 minutes of question and answer using high order thinking questions, there should also be 10 to 15 minutes of breakout session or independent work. So this is the part wherein you'd say, boys and girls, I have already shown you how readers um, tell the beginning and end of a story. Now I want you to read this book. Okay, or I want you to recall the book that I was reading, and I want you to write down and write a sentence as to which one is the describing the beginning of the story, middle of the story, and end of the story. You have 15 minutes to do that, and then I want you to be back here in our group or class session after 15 minutes, okay? And then if they nod and say yes, then you send them off. And then you work with the students who actually need more time understanding your lesson. Now, within that 45 minutes also, after they are done with independent work, ask them to come back and do a 5 minute whole class sharing, wherein they would start by saying, I learned that I can tell it's the beginning of the story, or I learned that uh, Cinderella doing this and that was the beginning of the story because there were no pages before it, or there was nothing said about Cinderella before this page. So that's how the sharing would look like. And then somebody would say, I agree with, or I don't agree with. I don't agree with Cameron. I agree with Cameron because I've noticed that too. There were no pages before this part of the story. That's why it's the beginning. Yung mga ganyang sharing, that's very important because it actually increases their awareness on the material that they're reading, aside from increasing their understanding of what actually happened in the story. So, example lang yan, especially for those who are very familiar with the reading workshop model for teaching reading. Now we proceed to having talked about all of those little details in the flow of the day. Let's recap the flow of the day in a very summarized form. Okay? Napakasimpleng form. Ito talaga yung dapat we prepare at the beginning. Okay? So, from 8 to 8:15, they log in. 8:15 to 8:20, your homeroom, you talk to all of them. At 8:20 to 9 o'clock, you're doing your word study, everything that has to do with learning the language or learning how to speak, read and write. You do that there. Then there's reading, which is really actually for comprehension, understanding events, whether that's in a story or in real life. That is part of reading. 9:45 and 10:30 writing, which is all about expressing your ideas, your thoughts, your opinion, and then putting down in pen. And then we have 10:30 to 10:45, which is the break, no screen time. Everybody takes a breather, go outside in the deck and the porch, breathe some fresh air, including the teacher, or bathroom break na din for many of you guys. Then 10:45 to 11:30 would be math computation. 11:30 to 12 would be science and social studies. 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock until 1 o'clock, that's your lunch break, 1 hour break. And hopefully they would really come back, okay? Because you tell them and it's also your routine. 1 to 1:45, math problem solving. And then you have breakout session, and you have to end your class as, a whole. And then there's your scheduled tutorial, and of course there's the extracurricular activity. So that's how a flow of the day should look like. Now you ask, but how will it look like in my Google Classroom or Class Dojo? So this is how it would look in your Google Classroom. Right, it's ending in 29 seconds. So this is how it would look like, which I will talk again in the next video. O, ayan na ha, our flow of the day. Remember, there should be date and there should be time frame for each subject. Okay?